So we're going to start off with the necklace because it's the main feature of the set that we're about to create. And I always use a statement bead to set the idea in motion. From that, I'm going to select my links that are going to create a more metallic look to the design. So I've actually taken these links from an interesting chain that I've bought from a beading shop. However, you can sometimes buy links separately, much like the links that I've used in this example. Those ones are bought individually, and those are what we call cast components. These ones come as a long length and are bought by the meter. And I've just cut 5 links off. What's good about this is that there's actually a large link and then a little link in between the larger links. So it creates a nice, interesting form and shape. After that, I'm going to start laying out some of my beads. So I'm not quite sure about the design and the layout yet, so I'm going to play around and see which works best for me. I often find that by selecting a few head pins, or in this case we're using ball pins because they've got a little ball on the end, and then I add a bead onto the pin, and that way if I lay the bead down with the pin, it stays in position even more so rather than rolling about. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and graduate my beads. So I'm going to start off by using slightly bigger ones closer to the big bead, and then I'm going to work my way out with some smaller ones going up to the top. It just means that the beads will sit well on top of each other and hopefully create a nice clustered look without being too clumpy. So the next one I'm going to go for is one of our sparkle beads. Now the sparkle beads, I've actually got 2 sizes. So because I'm working closer to the big bead, I'm going to use one of the bigger sizes. Finding the hole on these ones is a bit of a tricky job. So just roll it about in your hands, and at some point you should come across the hole. Okie doke. So I'm going to try and lay that one there. Now I've got my spikes. So I definitely want to incorporate the spikes. And again, I've got these in a couple of different sizes. So these are what are going to give my design a bit of edge. So I think I might put a spike there, or I'm wondering, yes, I think I will put a spike in between the big bead and the next bead along. Right, so I'm going to need another spike after that. The next bead I'm going to choose is going to be a purple glass bead. And because I've already got a purple bead there, I don't want to put another purple bead directly alongside that one. So I think I'm going to position that one over there. Then I think I'm going to go for a bright pink faceted semi-precious bead as well. This way I'm going to bring in the semi-precious theme that I've already started off with. Okay. Right, after that, I think it's time to start incorporating some of the smaller spikes. If I have too many big spikes going all the way along, they could start to prod out in directions that I don't really want them to go in. So bringing in the smaller ones and starting to graduate my pieces will help to get it to sit on top of each other quite nicely. So the next one along, I think I'm going to incorporate perhaps another purple. Let's just have a look and see how that's going to look. We'll see. We'll play around. We'll see if the next one should be something else entirely. So sometimes our head pins come with a little bit of a bend to them. So you can just straighten them out by using your fingers and pulling the wire in your hand. And that should help you thread the wire through the beads. Perhaps I would rather have a sparkly bead there instead, because that way it balances well with that side over there. And then perhaps I'll take another purple bead over there. Right, so after that, I think I'm going to get in a cluster. Nope, let's balance out that pink. We've got a very bright pink over there, and let's incorporate that on the other side too. Otherwise it's pink imbalanced. Definitely bringing in some of the smaller beads now. So with these ones, if I just add one on at a time, it's going to look quite lost in amongst the big beads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little mini cluster as one section. So I'm going to put that up there, and I'm going to link these ones together with a ring or a jump ring, which I'll talk about in a moment. Okay, and then up here I think I'm going to add in some more little semi-precious beads that are the same color as my feature bead. I've done 3 on that side, so I'll do 3 on this side too. These ones are very tiny, so finding the hole can be a bit of a trick. There we go. And again, I will end up clustering these together on one little jump ring. Okie doke. Now, I think I'm actually going to create a bit of detail at the bottom here as well, just because I'm really liking these spikes. And I think I'm going to need a little bit of extra length down there with a spike too. So I'm just going to see what that looks like to begin with by adding one spike down there. It's a bit plain, so let's add a bit of interest there too. So I'm going to add a bit more of a cluster there. Maybe bring in a small sparkle ball. Yeah, I think that might work. We'll soon see. Okay, before we actually start beading, I often find it useful to actually create the entire structure of the necklace and then add the beads onto that. That way I can hold the necklace up towards me, and then I can have a look to see if it's hanging well and correctly. Otherwise, if I'm beading and I need to make adjustments, I don't know how the necklace is going to hang. So I'm going to grab myself a little length of chain. In this instance, I'm using what we call curb chain. Curb chain is a little bit more edgy than some of the other designs. It's got a twisted link, and it's often used in funkier jewellery or fashion jewellery, and sometimes in men's jewellery too. Okay. Now, to get the length that we require, you can customize it to yourself. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this around my neck, in which case I think that one might be a little bit too small. So let's have a look at this one here. This is also a curb chain, but it's a slightly smaller size. So they come in different sizes. They go even finer than that. And in this case here, I've got one that's really nice and chunky. That too is a curb chain. Okay, so let's see. Is this length going to be more suitable? I'm preferring that length because I want this to be a fashion necklace. I want it to sit down low so it has a bit of a clustery, jangly feel to it. So to get the length, as I said, I'm going to customize it. You can go to standard length. So a standard length short necklace is around about 40 centimeters. A standard length for a long necklace is between 50 and 60 centimeters. So in this case, I'm going to find the middle because I need 2 strands, one for the left and one for the right. I'm going to fold it in 2. And then I'm going to find the middle link. Okay. Now, to split the ring or the link of the chain can be quite tricky. If you've got a really fine chain, you can actually just use your cutter and cut through the chain link. But in this case, even though this is quite a small chain, the links are quite substantial. So what we need to do is we need to find the split in the link, if we can. Okay, it might be difficult to see. I'll show you on a bigger example in a moment. I'm not cutting, but I'm using the side of the blade and I'm positioning that on the split, on the link, and I'm pushing that down so that that actually prizes the link apart, and then I wiggle it about, and that way it pushes the link open, and I can just take away that loose link. Now I have two separate lengths of chain to form my necklace. I'm just going to do a little demonstration on a slightly larger link for you so that that is more obvious. So if you look at the chain links, they have a split in them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the side of the blade, positioning it on the split, and I'm just, when I squash down, that should open up the link, particularly when I wiggle it about a bit. Okay, and if you need to, when it's a slightly bigger chain, you can actually pull it apart with your pliers too. That way you can pull your chain apart. You can actually just get rid of your open link. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to attach the chain to the loops. So for that I'm going to use some really small split rings or jump rings. And the reason why I'm using really small ones is because I want a seamless and discreet join. If I use bigger ones, that's absolutely fine, but it would be more obvious. So a split ring or a jump ring has a split on it. I'm going to do a demonstration on the bigger one so that it's more easy for you to see, and then I'll move on to the smaller one. So I position the split on the top part of the ring, and I hold it with my flat pliers. I then hold it with another pair of flat pliers, or if you don't have two pairs, you can use your round nose pliers too. And then I open that by pushing it forward or pulling it backwards. What I do not want to do is pull the jump ring out towards the side. Okay? If I do that, I'm actually damaging the full circle and the beautiful roundness of that circle. So that now is quite difficult to bring back together. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to open up another one, and I'm going to show you again the correct way of doing that. So I'm going to position my plier on one side of the jump ring. I've got the split facing up towards the ceiling, and I then have another plier positioned on the other side. In this case I've got some flat pliers, but you can actually use your round pliers as well. I just find it a bit more easy to use the flat ones, so either way is fine. I then push the pliers forward. So I often describe it to be a bit like a cat flap. So it's push it forward to open it. Do not pull it to the side because you're going to break that circle. So, and then to bring it back together again, it's the same thing. Push it forward or pull it back. And to make sure that the two ends come together well, you can push them in and wiggle them into place. So if you don't have a properly closed ring, you have the potential of your pieces falling off or a necklace falling apart. And that wouldn't be good. So in this instance, we're going to use some really small jump rings, some little oval ones. So I'm holding it in between my two pliers with a split on the top, and I'm pushing it forward to open it up. I'm then taking the end of my feature rings and I'm putting my ring on there, and I'm going to put my chain on there too. Okay, this could be quite fiddly because it is quite a small jump ring. There you go. And then I get my pliers back into position, and I make sure that that ring is properly closed, wiggling it into place. Okay. I do the same thing on the other side. Pushing it forward, putting it onto the link. And hopefully getting the chain on there too. I'm going to use my fingers for this one because it is quite small and fiddly. There you go. And then get the pliers back on there. making sure that that is well closed. Right, so now I have the basis for my necklace and what I call the skeleton of the necklace. I think I actually want to add a few more beads. I'm going to check that at the end, but I do need to add on a couple more spikes. Sometimes when you hang a necklace like this up, you'll find that the beads will all fall down on top of your feature bead. So where you think you've got lots of volume, it actually becomes a lot less. So we might need to add a couple more on afterwards, but we'll see when we get there. I think I'm one short here. I think I'm going to add in another little purple one here. We'll see how we get on. Okie doke. And that would mean a couple more spikes in between that as well. Right, so then we're going to get to actually constructing the necklace.